All right. Well, with that, let's get started. Welcome to this Leadferno webinar. I'm Aaron Weiche, joined by Joel Headley. We are the co-founders of Leadferno. Many of you as customers, if you're reaching out for support or through the sales cycle, have definitely probably interacted with us because most of the rest of our team is engineers. And so they're busy making all the wonderful things that Leadferno does, while Joel and I man the front lines and try to help you get the most out of it. And that's what's leading to today's webinar. We have often get the question on, how do I integrate Leadferno with my CRM? What are some other things I can do with Leadferno to work smarter and not harder? Things like that. All great questions. And our usual number one answer is Zapier, just because Zapier is such a widely used, well-established tool that helps build automations for businesses and can be helpful too to marketing agencies as they build automations for their clients. So we thought it would just be best to share some of our knowledge, some of the things that we see most frequently with Zapier and how it's used. So with that, just to cover a quick agenda, number one, we are recording this today. We will post this to our YouTube channel. Hopefully you've already subscribed to that. We roughly have 10, 12 videos out there ranging from a couple webinars that we've been on, demos, but then we have anywhere from 3 to 10-minute videos on specific features, auto replies, scheduled messages, setting up your lead box, and some of the adjustments you can make. So I would definitely say to bookmark that. It's in the footer of all of our emails. It's also linked at the bottom of our website in the footer, the YouTube icon. Otherwise, do a search for Leadferno on there. But we usually post a new video every 2 to 4 weeks on there, reviewing a feature or something helpful. We'll dive into some of those Zapier basics. So if you are not familiar with Zapier, we want to try to get you up to speed as much as possible. And then we also will then go through some of the common zaps, right? This is what Zapier calls it when you create this automation or connection between apps, with Leadferno being one of those apps you might be creating that with. And at the end, if we have some questions that are unanswered or need to be gotten into further, we will definitely do that. But first, let's start with Zapier. And I just want to put this out there. There are a number of what you would call no-code automation tools that are on the market. We're highlighting Zapier because, one, it is the longest standing out there. It's probably the most mature of the products that's out there. It's definitely the one we have the most experience with. So while we're in no means meaning this to be a complete infomercial or commercial for Zapier, but it definitely has all the necessary tools you need to build these types of automations. At the end of the day, there's over 6,000 apps in Zapier and just continues to grow. I want to say they've added 1,000 in the last year. And when I say apps, that means other tools like Leadferno. This can be MailChimp or Salesforce, Google Sheets, Gmail. All of these have an app in Zapier that you can then do integrations and automations for. So at the end of the day, it could be software that you're using as your CRM, marketing tool, accounting tool, AI, obviously now, scheduling, support, communication, the list goes on and on. And really at a high level, when I'm talking to people when they ask for recommendations on a piece of software to use for a new CRM or email marketing tool, things like that, I usually say one of your criteria should probably be, do they have a Zapier app? Because this just helps you free up that application to move data to other tools and not be stuck inside of a tool you're using. And if it isn't Zapier, you still want to be asking questions like, do they have an API? Do they have webhooks? Do they have the kind of tools that you can use to move data into one tool or another so you can build workflows that save you time? So with Zapier, it allows you to build these automations without a developer. You do have to kind of learn how to use Zapier. It has a little bit of a riding a bike to it. Hopefully, we're going to teach you some of those things today. But you're able to connect 2 or even more apps together in a Zap. So you can build a simple 2-step Zap that says, if a new lead happens in Leadferno, then add it to this row in a Google spreadsheet, this specific spreadsheet. You can build it that simple, or you can even build multiple steps where there's 3, 4, 5 automations, 3, 4, 5 different software tools that all get that update down the line in a chain. And you can do this research on your own. Zapier does have a free plan. It's super limited. It basically will allow you to get set up and do some small tests, but then their paid plans is where you want to end up. They start at $20. The most commonly used one is $50 a month because that does include some of the premium apps, depending upon the apps you have, like Salesforce is a premium app. The Zapier webhooks app that we're going to highlight today is a premium app. And it depends upon the number of tasks. So it kind of scales up. Tasks are when they're completing an automation. So like a 5-step or 5 apps in a Zap would be 5 steps. Every time that runs, it's running 5 different tasks on there. So it is very flexible pricing when you consider it could cost you hundreds to thousands of dollars for a developer to build you an automation using APIs. This basically allows you a very simple and affordable payment plan for just $50 to maybe $100 a month to pay over time, much more affordable. So covering some basics of Zapier, it really comes down to 2 key words that they use, and that's trigger and action. And how we break this down is a trigger is when this happens, that is what starts the automation. And the action is then automatically do this. And so when you create these apps, you're able to create one trigger that could be just one action, or here's where I was talking about the multiple steps. It might create 2, 3, or 4 actions. And you're going to see some of that represented in the examples that we share today. Just a quick couple of quick examples. So one of these might be the trigger is when you update a row in a spreadsheet, it then will create that row. You're putting in contact information. It creates it as a new contact in Leadferno. So the trigger is in Google Sheets and the action is creating the contact in Leadferno. Another one might be when a new lead happens in Leadferno, that's the trigger, and that automatically triggers the action of sending a message in Slack that your team then realizes that there's a new lead or information around it that's out there. For Leadferno, if you Google Leadferno and Zapier, or you go into our help guide, which is linked at the bottom of our website, you'll end up on the landing page. And we have both triggers and actions that you can use. So this is a list of the triggers in Zapier. So these are automations you can create that when these things happen, this is what can start your automation. So a new contact being created in Leadferno, which you can manually add contacts, or we also automatically create a contact when a new lead comes in. We have new leads. So this starts it when a new lead comes into Leadferno. The next one, updated lead status. So this is when you're marking a lead is moving to open, or you're marking it won, lost, closed. Updating that lead status is what will then trigger the automation. New message. So when a new message inbound or outbound is received in an open conversation can be your trigger. And then the last one that we've recently added with our tagging feature in the last few months is new tags. So when you add a tag to a conversation, that can start it. And that's one we're going to use in a couple of our examples today because it has some different benefits to it. The actions that we offer in Leadferno are creating a contact. So if you create a trigger in another piece of software, if you add someone to MailChimp, it could then create them as a contact into Leadferno. Updating a contact, so an existing contact getting new information. Finding and creating a contact. So it looks for it. If it can't find it, then it does create one. Sending a message. So this is an action that can be taken. And then finding a contact with a bunch of different information with how that flows through the system through a progression of steps inside of Leadferno through Zapier. To understand, triggers have a little bit different timing. There's basically 2 types for triggers. They're scheduled. So unlike the free plan, Zapier checks for an update of that information every 15 minutes or less. Once you move to that pro plan, that's that $50 plan I was talking about, that time frame is now 2 minutes. So when that trigger happens to start the Zap, there can be a delay of seconds to a couple of minutes with it. The other is being an instant, and that's where the event starts instantly. I do have an example. So the updated lead status, this is a scheduled trigger. So within a couple of minutes of you changing that lead status, that's when it'll run. So just be aware of that when you're setting up tests or doing things like that, that it might take a couple of minutes for that to post. Instant, we currently just have one instant trigger. That's our new tag trigger. So that immediately starts the second you apply that tag to it. We are probably looking to expand some of our instant tags over time, instant triggers over time. Just pay attention to our monthly email for when we release new features on that. And then lastly, all actions are instant. So the minute, whatever the trigger is on its delay and its timing schedule, the actions are instant. And those are always marked as right. When you look at that lower gray box there, you see the scheduled, instant, and right. All right, I want to point out, in addition to all of the apps that are out there that we talked about, things like Salesforce and HubSpot and MailChimp, Gmail, Google Sheets, Leadferno, everything else, Zapier also has a number of apps they have created to help really enhance your workflows. So these are things that help either provide logic or formatting or specific conditions and filters as you build out these apps. And we'll show you some examples. A couple of things that Joel and I are going to walk through have these today. Here's some of the most common ones. So it might be a filter. So your Zap can only go forward. The trigger happens, but it will only go forward to an action if a specific condition is met with it. So the one you'll see in ours is it uses tags as the trigger, but then it applies a filter only if it's this one specific or these two specific tags will cause it to have an action. That way you can create specific automations based off a specific tag happening and not just any tag happening that's out there. Schedule means you can schedule something for a recurring task at specific times of day. Delay is helpful for sometimes you have information that might populate into a CRM, and then you need to schedule a delay for the system to intake that information before you ask it to do the next action. So as you'll see in our HubSpot integration, we put in a delay because the contact is created. We then want a delay, and then we want it to create a deal or a lead based off of that contact. But we want to absolutely make sure the contact information is there. And then lastly, webhooks is a way to help expose or move data out of different types of tools that's out there, and we'll touch on that one as well. But in overall, there's 25 of these. That link, if you just search for like Zapier tools, you'll see a full list of these, and these can really be used to enhance your flows in between these apps, just as we talked about, if you need to filter things, apply specific conditions to them. So with that, the first app that we're going to look at, I finally get to take a breath. And we'll switch screens over to Joel sharing this one. What we're going to do today is basically walk through the editing mode of each of these apps. We already have them set up, but we will kind of walk through what each step looks like and call out some of the specific information and things that you want to consider with it. This first Zap is Leadferno into Google Sheets. We're using a trigger of updating the lead status in Leadferno and then creating a row within Google Sheets for that. So our use case examples here is you might want to move all leads that you're marking lost into a spreadsheet because you might want to analyze those, break them down, use them to re-engage in email after that, or lookalike audiences in Facebook, things like that. So with Joel, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So pretty basic when we're creating a Zap. Zapier is really great. When you first come in to create a Zap, they have a new feature that allows you, and maybe that's something that's worthwhile showing you in a second, and I'll show that at the end here, but they have a new feature that just says, hey, tell us what kind of Zap to create, and they'll try to create it for you right at the beginning, which is kind of neat. But once you select the kind of trigger, so in this case, I would say, hey, I want to create an update. I want to update the lead status in Leadferno. It's going to take you through, for each trigger, it's going to take you through the app event. This is in Leadferno. And then the event. So Aaron showed you all those triggers. I'm going to select updated lead status. Continue, and then it will take me to the connection. This is an OAuth connection. In this case, Aaron signed in with his account, aaron@leadferno.com. He signed into Leadferno, used his email and password, and this allowed him to select this account, this profile, which is all window door in the service. Each profile, as you know, is associated with a phone number. Aaron has a lot of profiles. We found that, and for those of you who service multiple, as an agency, multiple maybe partners or clients, we found that sometimes Zapier duplicates some of these profiles as you load more. You'll notice sometimes you'll see Green Law Firm Tulsa shows up twice. This is a Zapier thing. You just keep loading more till you find the profile that you want to get. Here's my service line profile. I've already have it selected. I'll just go ahead and select it again. And then I choose the status I want updated into my spreadsheet. Like Aaron said, I'm going to choose close lost, and I'm going to hit continue. This allows me to test the trigger. It will find if there's a no lead status found. What it's saying is that, hey, I haven't found any leads that have the close lost status in there. That's fine. I can skip the trigger, or I can go back into Leadferno. I can close, make sure there's a lead with a closed lost lead in there, and move on. Now, that's the trigger. The next step will be to create the row in the spreadsheet. Now, I did get a lead in Leadferno from Leadferno. This is all the stuff that comes into a lead, right? All the information. And when I go into the spreadsheet row, I, again, same thing. In create spreadsheet, it says I'm going to choose the app. The app is Google Sheets. And the event, I get all the different events I can get with that app. In this case, I want the event to be create spreadsheet row, continue. I'm going to choose an account. In this case, I chose my own account, Joel at Leadferno. Again, same thing, opened up a window, had to enter my email and password, OAuth in, gave Zapier an ability to read and write my Google Drive account, continued. Now I chose my Drive account. In this case, I'm going to do my Google Drive. I chose the spreadsheet. I called this spreadsheet webinar demo, but there's all sorts of spreadsheets in my account. To choose from, webinar demo is just fine. There's only one sheet on the spreadsheet. So choose that spreadsheet. And then it brings in the first row of headers. I happen to name the rows. So first name, last name, phone, lead status, and time changed, right? If I wanted to go into that spreadsheet and change it to time changed, I could do that and then go back and refresh fields. And you'll notice that now that field has changed to time changed. So it does connect to that spreadsheet. And when I come in here, I want to insert the data from the spreadsheet. Sometimes we tend to type directly into this field, type something like date modification. That's not what we want to do. We want to go to insert data. So we want to search modification time. And again, this is all the data we brought in from updated lead status and Leadferno. And we want to go to modification date, and we'll stick it right in there. You'll notice, again, Zapier is giving you an opportunity to reformat. If you don't like this format, year, month, day, and then timestamp, you could reformat that time using Zapier's triggers. Continue, and then just publish that. And I could do demo and publish. And that will go live. So the next time we close a lead and it's lost, that will now publish into the spreadsheet, and I can do those marketing activities from that spreadsheet outside of Leadferno. Any questions? Feel free to post them in the Q&A and we can get those towards the end. The next one is, what is the next one up we got, Aaron?
Next one is our HubSpot.
HubSpot.
All right.
All right,
Leadferno to HubSpot. So I'll take this one. Our example we're going to use here is you want to move a lead once you've qualified it into HubSpot or any other CRM as a contact. A couple things I want to put out there. HubSpot and some CRMs require an email address, and that's something that Leadferno doesn't capture off of our first reach out form in the lead box. And we do this because we want to have the least amount of fields possible. So that's why we only ask for name, number, and allow them to type their message. Is every field adds a little bit more friction. But it's very easy to ask them for their email while you're answering questions and you're basically qualifying that lead. And this is a very common use case we have people ask about. I've blogged about it previously, but they want to use Leadferno to qualify leads, and they only want to send their qualified leads into their CRM like HubSpot. So this allows you, by the way that we're doing this, to answer a few questions, ask them a few questions, get their email address. Once you have that, you can then apply a tag to it, and that will start the automation. So this Zap that I'm about to highlight here, it will also work with Salesforce, Pipedrive, Zoho, and then industry-specific ones like Clio in the law area, Jobber, different things like that. So if your CRM has a Zap, you'll be able to leverage one pretty similar to this. All right. All right, now the challenge is, there we go. I have like 4 screens going, so finding where I left my cursor. Get rid of slides. All right. So when we take a look at this one, we see that we've created, right? If you come in, when you come in from the start, you have a blank canvas with this. You're able to put in, here's the trigger, here's a tag I want. I should also say Zapier is starting to use AI on the front where you can just write in to start building a Zap and say, here's what I want to do. I want to take a new tag in Leadferno and turn that into contact, the creator update a contact in HubSpot. And it'll automatically grab the trigger and the action for you to start building it. You will have to, add the plus and use some of these other steps that are in here. So with that, looking at this one where we're, the trigger is a new tag in Leadferno. We've selected Leadferno. The event is new tag. We see here, it's marked with the instant, so you understand the timing on that one. We're selecting which accounts. We've already authorized that it's going through Aaron at Leadferno. We're looking at the trigger is in what account, and then a profile in that account. So it's Wave Marina that I do. If you've ever been on one of my demos, you're very familiar with Wave Marina, and then Wave Marina sales for profiles. And then it populates a record for us. We're able to run that test, and it checks out. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're using one of the filter or one of the workflow apps by Zapier. We're using the filter app. And we're using the filter app here for where I mentioned before, because we only want this to fire when a specific tag happens. So when we look at this, we're setting up only continue if the tags label, which when we can pull all of the options out of here, the tag label is what we want to use because that's going to tell us, what tag that we're using. And the text must be in that tag. And so specifically lead. I'm using the lead tag in my Leadferno inbox in order to send that one. So when I go into it, here's that lead tag that's already been applied to it. I can go into this one and remove it, but applying that lead tag is what is going to fire that automation and allow it to make it through that filter to go to the next step. All right, the next one is creating or updating the contact. So we've connected to our HubSpot account. The event that we're using here is to create or update the contact. HubSpot has a large number of opportunities for triggers and actions out there, and being a very robust piece of software. So you can look through a number of those options. This is probably one of the more common ones of create or update update account. We're authenticating our account. We're going through the actions. So when this goes to happen, we're now pulling in, again, they require the contact email. That's why we're using the tag instead of a new lead or a new contact, because we need to, in the conversation, get the email from them and add it into the contact profile in Leadferno. All kinds of different fields for Facebook ads, Google ads, all kinds of additional data that's in here. Really, we get down to then adding, first name, last name, their phone, and those are the elements that we need in order to create this. So tons of fields with HubSpot here. We're just looking to grab the basics of name, number, email, the information that we've captured with them. Once we've done that, it's going to show us all the information in a sample one. That'll checks out, and then we can run a test on it. So if we just created a Zap with these 3 steps, it's going to take us from we give them the specific tag of lead, the filter checks and make sure it is the lead tag. Then we create, then that creates or updates that contact in HubSpot. But now I'm doing a couple other steps for this because I also want to bring in the information that was in our conversation into that contact file. So the next step I'm using is a delay in Zapier. So here in using the delay app, we can click a delay for how long. So we're selecting to wait for a specific amount of time before completing the next action. Again, this is just to basically let that data settle, give it time to come into the system, be saved by HubSpot instead of trying to like piggyback those instantly, and one might not fire instantly, and then it would throw off our Zap. The action we're choosing for it is just minutes, and we're just giving it a 1-minute delay. So you have the option here to use minutes, hours, days, weeks. 1 minute is the minimum delay. They're already outlining for us here, so that's the minimum delay I have. So it's just going to give 60 seconds to make sure that that contact has been created or updated in HubSpot, and then we're going to move on to the next step in it, which is creating the engagement. So again, here we select HubSpot for the app on this step. The event is create engagement. Again, tons of different action opportunities in there. Connected to the right account. And then we're just going through and answering these questions. The engagement type we're putting in as a note. The note body is going to be the message from within it. And anything associated, we're associating the email address with it. So very simple to put that together. So this is creating a Zap that helps you go from qualifying the lead in Leadferno, applying that a specific tag to it. In this case, it's lead. It will then run that automation. And we jump out here and we see that Fred has now been added as a contact. I'm in HubSpot. Fred is added as a contact within HubSpot. We can click into Fred and we see that it's pulled in that conversation as a note in his activity. So the things we expected to happen from me clicking on that lead while doing the demonstration of that one has taken place. All right. Are there any specific questions that you might want to ask? Go ahead and drop those within the Q&A. I'm going to pull up. The next Zap that we're going to outline, we'll be kicking it back over to Joel. This is another common one that we've done, Gravity Forms to Leadferno. So Gravity Forms is a form app most commonly used in WordPress. So this helps you build and generate contact forms, estimate forms, appointment forms, all kinds of things like that. Gravity Forms has a number of different tools and templates and things like that. What it allows us to do is we're basically grabbing the results when that form is filled out and then pulling them into Leadferno to create a lead and a conversation thread in Leadferno for you. So this is a great way to take any existing, it could be your estimate form, a contact form on your website, a scheduling form, and bring that into Leadferno, because we've had a number of customers, once they start using Leadferno, they're like, this is cleaner, easier, better features. I love shortcuts and auto replies and all these things. I'd rather all of my leads come into Leadferno. And since so many sites use WordPress and Gravity Forms is very popular, this is one way to be able to take results from those forms and bring them into Leadferno to make us more of a true, one source, one center for your website leads that are coming in. We're outlining gravity forms. This will also work with Google Forms, Type Forms, Jotform, Unbounce. If you have landing pages, you can do it with their forms. And also Squarespace, their app, form completion can be pulled in. So those are just a handful of the apps that might be form related or have those tools and elements that will also, you could swap out for gravity forms and it would work much the same way. So with that, Joel, I will turn it over to you to walk through this Zap.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly show, we have this app set up, but I wanted to quickly show what it would look like if I'm starting brand new from an app. So in this case, Gravity, this is a nice new feature, especially Gravity Forms, submission to Leadferno message. And try this and see if it kind of can build the Zap for me. And it did pretty well. Gravity form submission, send a message to Leadferno, and I would try it, and it does pretty well here. So I'm gonna switch back to my app that I built. And I see your question, Tim. We didn't build one for I kind of want to try it just for fun. I'm not sure. Salesforce lead to, I think you're probably actually asking for Leadferno contact to Salesforce lead, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so Tim, we will be sharing Tim's message, just so everyone knows, it's just say he was late to the webinar asking if we covered anything on Leadferno to Salesforce.
And we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't specifically. We just did a Zap, though, of Leadferno to HubSpot, but it's basically the same, right? You're swapping out, yep, HubSpot for Salesforce with it. So Tim, when you watch back the recording, which we will push to YouTube and share that link with all the webinar registrants tomorrow, you can cover that. But just as Joel's outlining here, and I mentioned earlier, right, they have this nice AI where you just give the description of what you want one app to do to the other, and then it will kind of start creating the template for you. You will still have to plug in all the details and put in some of the other steps that you'll see in the Zaps that we've shared today, but it's a great, simple starter to get you going with it.
Yeah, so what I want to highlight in this, the Gravity form submission, it's not unlike the other ones you've seen, right? You select the app, select the event. Again, you auth the account into this, and you select the trigger. One of the important parts is that you think a phone number is a phone number, but in fact, you want to use a specific format. We're using the formatter by Zapier. This is special. Again, these special apps from Zapier don't count as if you're using the free version of Zapier, for example, this would be 1-2 events. This third event wouldn't cost, right? Which is kind of nice. So you want to format the number into what I think they call it here it is, E164. This is how Leadferno recognizes the number, how the machine of Leadferno recognizes it. So when you go to Leadferno, when you create a contact, you want to first check to see if it's already a contact, because we'll fail if it's already there. So you do a find a contact, and so you take that number, format it, and then you're going to use the event of find a contact. Again, you choose the account that you find it, and then you take the output of that cell phone number, the output of the formatted phone number. So the way you do that is you search for the output, right, of that formatted information. And then if it's not there, you have this option of create contact if it doesn't exist yet. And then when you create the contact, you can insert the data from the Gravity form. So you'll be inserting the first name. Sorry, almost. In this case, we don't have the first name, last name separated. You could drop in the full name into the first name field, or you could use format data to try to split it apart. And then for the cell, you would look at what does it look like here. It's mobile phone, and drop it in. Actually, we would use that formatted cell phone. Oh, cell phone region. I'm reading this wrong. For us, it's going to be US, and that just lets them continue. And we could retest the step, make sure it's working fine, and feel good about it and continue. Now, the next step is if we want to, for example, send an auto reply, we can have Leadferno do this. This isn't going to be a typical new lead like you get from a lead box. So we'll want to send a message through the Zap or have Zapier push that message. And so once we create that account, we're going to create a new lead or open up a lead or a thread in Leadferno and send the message. So in this case, I'm going to jump right to the action and I'm going to send a message. In this case, we're actually not sending a message. We're just opening a lead and creating a note. So we have two message types. It can be a text message or a note. In this case, we're just dropping in a note in Leadferno that says what the name is, email, where the website came from. This was Gravity Forms. We're actually using this on Leadferno to see how many, if you're interested as a partner. What we can actually do to these messages, these are just pulling in the form fields. What we can do is actually put information like we can label this in our note. So instead of just having name, we can actually be name : and his name is Jim True. We could put email and we could actually label these things if we wanted to. So you can combine both the variable that's coming in from your Zap and then add words that would be standard words in these message fields. All right. I think that's it on the Gravity Forms to Leadferno. Again, you can do this with any type of form. In fact, I think our next one is just another type of form, but we're using an extra special kind of thing, which is this webhook. Webhooks are really great because webhooks are doing something in real time from an external source. So the internet, right, has kind of two major protocols, right? You get stuff. That's what you're doing when you're getting a web page. You get stuff from a URL and you send stuff to a URL, or you post stuff to a URL. So that's what you're doing on a form. A webhook is just something you're posting something to. In this case, what you're posting something to is to Zapier. And any service that wants to post things can post things into Zapier. Zapier creates a unique URL for this particular Zap. So, so any service that says we support posting to webhooks, right, can be supported by Zapier to bring data in and then to send that information into Leadferno. Makes sense? So one of the examples we wanted to show is using a form service. Aaron, remind me which form service we're using here.
On this one, I think it's part of a WordPress theme called Cadence. They automatically have a contact feature built in that will generate a webhook from a completed form. I did just want to pipe in and say, like, webhooks is now becoming a more common feature with either contact form plugins, like Gravity Forms does have webhook options. Sometimes it's built into like a WordPress theme, like the example we're showing is built into the Cadence WordPress theme. Plugins, services, other tools you might be using. It's just kind of getting familiar to like look and ask if webhooks is kind of an output option from that form being submitted with it. So it's definitely becoming more common. It doesn't have, where results sent to you by email is the most common, and that's been around 20 plus years in a form. We're starting to see the rise in this because just as we're showing, this basically allows you to start, syndicating and automating all these different sources back into one source for you, which is the efficiency that most of us are after. So with that, Joel, I'll let you take it away and show us how this one breaks down.
Yeah, and it's basically how the web shares information in real time or near real time. So let's look at this. So they call this a catch hook in webhooks by Zapier. Again, this is a premium feature. So again, Aaron went through that. When you select the event catch hook, what they're saying is we're going to publish a URL that can catch stuff that's sent to it. Okay. I want to here it is. So when I created this catch, what they did is they sent me a URL, or they created a URL. I can't edit this URL, but I gave that URL, or I sent that URL to the editor in WordPress, and in that WordPress WordPress editor, that WordPress editor said, "Hey, we can send stuff to our URL. Tell us what URL to send to. This is the webhook URL." So now in WordPress, or any CRM or any other app that can send information to a webhook, they can now send data to this URL. And what happens is that when you come into Zapier, they say, okay, we now are seeing a bunch of information coming in from that webhook. It's coming in from this website. This is the name of the post that's coming in. Here's the ID, here's the form, and it sends all this data in this webhook, okay? It says they accepted the cookie policy, yada, 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 right? Here's the query string. The query string is probably that URL if they had, for example, UTM parameters in the URL, right? It would capture all that data, which is pretty neat, right? So great. I'm going to now create my Zap after that webhook. Again, I'm going to do that number formatting that we talked about because I want to create a contact in Leadferno, same way we just did in that previous form creator, because I'm basically going to do the same thing. The only really unique thing is how I'm capturing the data. So same thing, I'm going to do that formatting E164 format, which is basically this +1, which is the country code, right? That's that +1, and then no dashes, no parentheses around the phone number. Make sure that phone number is in the right format. I'm going to search for the contact, and then if the contact isn't there, I'm going to create a contact in Leadferno if it doesn't exist yet. Give it a first name, last name, and add the email address in the contact if it isn't there yet. Okay. And then I'm going to want to send a message to this contact as if I'm giving them an auto response out of that lead form. Two-step process. First, I'm actually going to post a note into Leadferno that I got a new lead via the web form. And here, this is what I did in the note. It's kind of the way we do lead submissions. Like I said, I can have information that I type right into the message. It's not dynamic. So contact form submission, this is where the contact form submission was. I'm going to put the form ID. The form ID is dynamic coming from the form. So if I edited the form and that changed, that form ID can change. I'm going to put in the user IP address. Maybe we don't want to do this in the future for reasons we don't, whatever. User device, I can drop that in. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in here URL parameters. And I think there was query. Wasn't there something like query string? Oh, I don't see it in here. All right. Well, maybe because no data came over with it. But I could test that and add that information into the note. I select message type note and post that information into a lead or a conversation with this contact. Then also, I want to send a message to that contact. Thanks. And in this case, I select message type SMS. Thanks for submitting a message via contact form. A sales representative will be with you shortly. Because this is a hook, a webhook by Zapier, and it's a trigger, it's essentially an instant trigger. So I'm going to go to this contact form, right? I have it pre-filled out for you. Hit let's talk and send it in. This is going to execute essentially instantly. Where's that? So this is brand new message. Notice that because I signed in as Aaron, this is how all the Zapier stuff works. The person that you sign in as is ultimately the person that's going to be performing the action in Leadferno. This is the submission that we just did, and we sent an auto-like response. The auto response in this case can be customized in Zapier to match the contact form that they came through from. This is an interesting way to provide kind of separate auto responses depending on the lead source that we're getting. So we get this kind of unique note that tells us the lead source, and then we can send that response directly. And now we can start engaging with this person directly through Leadferno, as opposed to having multiple sources where this person might be sending in different, even if they're using different contact mechanisms. So that would be one way where we could use the webhook through Zapier.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. That's one of those that kind of opens up a world of opportunities because of the flexibility in webhooks and all of those other elements. So that's one definitely worth continuing to learn up on. I do want to say here, after outlining those ones, there are tons of more zaps and automations that can be created from what we covered today. We tried to cover our most common ones with some of the most common pieces of software we see that with, just as we tried to highlight the software that Leadferno is connecting with can be swapped out with all of these different pieces and elements. And then there's even ones if they don't have a Zapier app, but they do have webhooks capability, you can still use Zapier to connect with Leadferno, even though that software doesn't have a Zapier app themselves. So hopefully this sparked some of your ideas. You know, really at the end of the day, I tell people with Zapier, it's kind of like learning to ride a bike that's constructed a little bit different. You just have to like figure out the way it works. The best way is to always start small, just set up a two-step zap, then start looking at, can I make this easier, the data cleaner, it work off a specific function, and then you're maybe using one of those Zapier steps in there for a delay or a filter, or the number formatter, you know, actually might be needed to make the zap work correctly. But then you can expand from there. So start small, learn how the formatting and kind of the nomenclature of Zapier works, and then continue to build out from there. I think one of the best resources, you know, Joel and I are only as dangerous as the things we utilize or have experience with. There is so much out there. Definitely going to Zapier, looking at their resources, Googling, looking for videos on specific setups and things like that. There's message forums that are out there. Zapier specifically has a section, I can't remember what they call it, but they have like Zapier experts. So you can hire people that they've vetted to set up and build Zaps for you. People can be used off of Fiverr as well. So some of the marketplaces for freelancers have Zapier experts. My only advice there, if somebody's super cheap, I would be afraid. Someone charging more has a lot more experience and their time is worth more. That doesn't mean you have to go with the most expensive, but I definitely would look for someone that has a good amount of reviews and isn't the rock bottom price. That you might get someone good, you might not. So with that, if there's any other questions you guys would like to ask in the remaining few minutes, we would love to cover that. Thanks, Tim drops in the community, just tested a Leadferno lead to Salesforce lead and it was successful. So that's, I love people doing it while they're on here learning with us. We will be posting this, as I already talked about, to our blog and to our YouTube channel. There's the link. We're just at Leadferno 9209 on there. If you hit subscribe there, you will just get a notification every time we post. Again, it's basically only about once a month that we're posting content there. I do want to highlight Zapier Access is included in all of our Leadferno plans. So like our API, you need to be in our second tier, our premium, to be able to use the API so we can support you correctly with that. But Zapier Access, if you're on a plan with us, you're able to utilize it. If you're currently not with Leadferno and you're interested, we have a 14-day free trial. If you're a digital marketing agency, we do have an agency partner program that allows you to work with your customers through Leadferno, have access to their accounts so that you can help them with setup and reportings and things like this. I'm always surprised how few of agencies are doing Zapier work for their customers, because it's an area where you're already a little more digitally fluent. And it's something I think what's most common is people end up having a per project fee instead of per hour. So you can say, hey, to build that Zap is $300 or $500 instead of saying, I'm going to build you time and materials. So for agencies, that can be really advantageous. If you have any questions in follow-up, feel free to always reach out to us. Email is always available, support@leadferno.com. The benefit there is it goes into our ticketing system. We all can see it. But you can always reach out if you're in the help guide or on our site. Just look for the lead box and click. You can get help from us pretty darn quickly through text. And if that's helpful, we have our help guide linked at the bottom in the footer of our website, as well as the YouTube channel. So a number of different resources and ways to get help from us as well. So, all right. Seems like there's no questions. Appreciate the feedback, Tim, Matt. Happy to help you guys out. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Pay attention to that YouTube channel. We will send out the email link with it as well. Joel and I will continue to try to get better. I think we did all right, Joel, I was really rusty on this, so I think we did all right.
Yeah, I think it worked out.
All right, cool. We never disconnected or shut off the webinar, so that's probably the biggest win.
Yes, for sure.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next time when we do a webinar with Leadferno. And we'll talk soon.